Welcome to Up Close and Personal. This is Malcolm Berman, and I'm honored to have as my guest just before Christmas is Bill A. Jones. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Malcolm. It's a pleasure to be a guest with you. Thank you.
Yeah, I've met you doing when you've done when you've been the entertainer over at Harris Height Estates. I think that's when we met a number of years ago when you do the luau.
Yeah, and I think I was on a radio show with you and another gentleman back a million years ago.
You might have. That's
might have been the very first time that we met. But yeah,
because and until I found out the Zoom where people could see me, I said, "Oh my God, this is better than radio." I mean, because with my voice, they say, what part of Brooklyn are you from? And my light just went out, and I don't know why.
But
I put on another one.
You're back. All right.
I'm back.
Well, I used to do radio, and I always said that I had a face for radio. Actually, other people said that about me, come to think of it. But anyway.
Well, I was looking your background, and you've done everything. Is there anything that you haven't done that you want to?
Oh, Lord. About the only thing that I haven't done is I haven't been a female impersonator yet.
I think you do well, except you would have to raise your voice a little bit, make it a little higher.
I have to, yeah, exactly. And hey, I'd like a lot of performers. Throw money on the floor. I'm going to be rolling around down there getting it. So pretty much, yeah. I have done a lot of things and continue to do a lot of things during the pandemic. Someone asked me recently, about reinvention and about adaptation during this time. And I said, well, performers, actors, singers, we're sort of like cockroaches. I'm told that the cockroach may be the only organism to live after a nuclear holocaust because they're that resilient. And so actors and performers are sort of that way as well. During the pandemic, I've done a couple of front porch concerts streaming over Facebook from my front porch, a live performance. My daughter is my special guest, and she's truly the most talented Jones in this household. And then also I've done a lot of voiceover work from my home studio where I'm speaking to you from right now. Here's my microphone. And I've done everything from looping to industrial voiceover to 5 audiobooks now, I believe, in the last few months. And I've also, during the pandemic, been very, very fortunate to be cast on camera a couple of times. Most recently as a game show host for a commercial for Experian, the credit reporting people. They've got a new product, and I'm not supposed to talk much about it until the commercial gets released, but I can tell you that it also stars a wrestler named John Cena. So anyway, I'm a game show host on that. And I also booked a day of work on a soap opera, General Hospital.
Wow.
A few months ago. And that I didn't have to audition for that. My agent just sent over the reel of some of my work and got cast in it. So I've been very, very, very fortunate during this time to actually have gotten some work. And a lot of my friends and colleagues have not been so fortunate. So I'm very, very grateful at the holiday season.
You're so versatile. I looked at your background, and you've done everything from TV to stage to film to voiceovers to MCs. Oh, by the way, when you speak to your agent, tell him there's an opening at ABC for a show called Jeopardy. You would be very good for that.
If anyone watching happens to know the producers of Jeopardy, I would love to try out. I would love to do that. I did not meet Alex Trebek. I have met Peter Marshall, another game show host. And I've always thought hosting a game show would be great fun. My friend Jane Lynch, whom I worked with on Glee, she's hosting a couple of game shows now. She's doing Weakest Link, and she's also doing Hollywood Game Night. And she's brilliant at it. She's absolutely brilliant.
She's fun. I hate to say, I don't necessarily like the shows. But as I say, the only thing that you would probably, and knowing you probably could do it. I always marveled at Trebek that he could say those names that are impronounceable. And I'm sure, of course, I know he rehearses it, and they tell him how to pronounce it, but he says it flawlessly. I've never seen him stumble.
You know, Peter Marshall told a story at an event that I was at. I think it was Pacific Pioneer Broadcasters, or as it's now been renamed, Hollywood Media Professionals. And he told the story about how he was hosting, Peter Marshall was hosting Hollywood Squares back in the day. And he heard about this new guy who was hosting a show, and he didn't use cue cards. And he was that brilliant. And he, you know, went over and watched him in the studio, and you know, they became friends and what have you. And Trebek, truly one of the great hosts of game shows, and a heck of a nice guy from everyone I've talked to that have crossed paths with him. So God rest him, and you know, God may he rest in peace.
Yeah, amen. There's some classic game shows that I do growing up. I think one of them was Hollywood Squares. That was Peter Marshall, right?
Yeah.
That was a wonderful show. And then one of the funniest is I'm forgetting his name. Anyway, forget about it. But anyway, that's what you should try out. Why don't you just I think have your agent become proactive. Don't wait till they come to you. Go to them. Because I can picture you walking up. You have the same debonair type of attitude. You have that same type of voice.
You know, I'd be very happy for it to happen. Most likely, they're going to be looking for someone that may have a little bit bigger name than me, maybe.
I don't know whether that would be necessary in that slot, because
I think you're right. It's sort of like gilding. It's like gilding the lily, to use an expression. You know, people are going to tune in for the show,
right?
Because the show is so interesting. But yeah, you know, it's funny. I've done game show hosts on camera at least 3, maybe 4 times over the years. And actually, I did one many years ago for, I forget who I did it for, but it was a little short film called Max. No, it was. Yeah, that was the name of it. And I played this really goofy, over the top game show host. And at the end of the film, he sort of gets knocked back up against the set. And there's this, you know, big arrow that comes down and bangs me on the head. And I sort of fall over or whatever. A fellow that I worked with at the time at a radio network was friends with Dick Clark, who of course hosted $20,000, $100,000 Pyramid, whatever it was, and gave the videotape to Dick Clark. And Dick always responded to things that Ed Solomon was the guy's name, gave him, except for that one. So Ed theorizes that he wasn't thrilled about seeing a game show host have such a demise. That's his only thing. So.
Well, you have, as I say, such a varied background. If you had your druthers and you could pick one, would you pick one career, or do you like doing the mishmash, not the mishmash, but the as I say, you've done television, you've done stage, you've done film. Is there a favorite media that you like?
You know, I've gotten asked that many times, and it's a difficult question for me to answer. At times, I think I know the answer, but then at other times, I think, no, I don't. I mean, my first foray into show business started when I was 16. I worked in radio for 38 years.
Wow.
First in Tennessee, where I grew up, doing every kind of radio known to man. And then moved out here and got on with a radio network. And for about 20 years, I was heard via satellite to radio stations around the country playing Frank Sinatra kind of music, same kind of music that I sing these days. And also worked for a while on a local station here in the Los Angeles market called K-Light. And fully enjoyed radio, but also at the same time I was trying to develop my on-camera career. And always had this thing that I sort of was trying to deny for years about the singing. When I was in Tennessee, before I moved out here, I did musicals, and I'd started singing with a big band actually, with the Hank Levine Orchestra, and I'd done some stuff with Lewis Brown, not Les Brown, but Lewis Brown,
Louis Brown?
who was a local band leader there.
Well, Les's
Lewis,
brother.
who knows? Maybe, who knows?
I
I don't
don't
think.
know.
But I moved out here, and I was doing radio. And I was trying to get on-camera career going, and I stopped singing for about 15 years, and something nearly dried up inside me that was very important. My wife, who works in the travel industry, my wife currently is the managing director of a safari company. If you ever want to go to Africa, that's what the lovely Mrs. Jones does. My wife at the time, several years ago, let's see, we were pregnant with our youngest, who's now 17, okay. She was representing a cruise line up in Alaska, and I flew up and joined them in progress because I had done some radio stuff. And there was the ubiquitous talent night where, people, got up and performed and did things. And I had the chance to sing with this group of fabulous young musicians, mostly out of McGill University in Canada. And it was marvelous. The next morning at breakfast, the paid classical duo waved us over, and we sat at the table with them. And people kept coming up and saying, "You're a professional, aren't you? Yeah, you can't fool me." Wonderful, sweet old ladies, on cruises and what have you. And I said, "Well, I've had some experience, thank you, blah, blah, blah." And the classical duo gave me great encouragement. And it felt like someone had finally watered a wilting flower inside of me when I sang. So I came back to LA, one coincidence after another. I happened into a now torn down steakhouse called Leon's over at Victory and Vineland, I think is where it was. I went in to have the steak and gristle, the gristle and eggs, special. And as I was finishing up, a big band struck up from what I thought was the entrance to the bathroom. And I went back there, and it was a whole hall, and there was a 17-piece big band.
Wow.
Anyway, I gave my card and started singing with big bands. And since that time, one coincidence has happened after another. I've had a brief tour with the Glenn Miller Orchestra, one of the Glenn Miller Orchestras, not the original Glenn Miller Orchestra. I'm not that old, people. And I've got my own act, my own nightclub act. Back in February 15th, before COVID hit and everything got shut down, I had the pleasure of, hopefully I didn't lose you there.
No, we got, well, you got your name plugged, but your picture's back.
Anyway, I had the pleasure of doing my own show at Vitello's and selling out, and standing ovations at the end. This sounds like I'm aggrandizing myself, and I am.
Well, if not you, who else?
So this is a long way of getting to the answer. Whenever you work on camera with someone like Jane Lynch in Glee, as I did many times, it is
Mr. When I mention your name, people say, "Oh, Rod Remington."
Yeah. Yes, Rod Remington, the character I played on IMDb says 16 episodes. It was really 18, and I shot a 19th, but I got cut out of it on that show. And I've done other things as well. I've been.
You've done other things. You have 2 pages of other things you've done.
Wow. Yeah. It's a shameless self-promotion somewhere on my website. But whenever you work with someone like the caliber of a Jane Lynch, who's like a great tennis player, your game comes up because of them. And it's incredibly satisfying, number one. Number two, whenever you do a commercial and you receive residual checks, it's incredibly gratifying. And there's something about doing a good voiceover, and it's almost like you've planted a garden and there's a flower that's sprung up. You can stand back and admire it in a way. There's something workmanlike but very satisfying about doing that. But I will tell you, performing live in front of a audience that's able to respond back to you immediately and to feed your soul, and then you feed their soul in turn, that's pretty special. So if I were able to, on a very consistent and high level, be able to perform with great musical entities around the country, that might be the one thing that I would choose to do if I had to choose one thing.
Yeah,
Long answer.
well, I'll tell you. I mean, I was introduced to you basically as a singer, and you know, I would say that you go back to the old type. I don't know if it's crooner. I don't know if a crooner would be an apt name for things now. But going back to the Sinatra type of music, which I loved as a kid, Perry Como. You could sit down and listen to him. Now, I guess someone who does that would be the Tony Bennett type of thing, where you can sit back and. I remember as my early 20s listening to Sinatra with a cigarette in one hand and scotch and soda in the other hand.
It's 1 of the 3.
And feel at ease. And this is where I could see you. I would love to become your manager and start when things go back and put you on a tour of my old boss used to. What he did is he did college tours. He was the first guy to book the rock and roll acts and college tours, and he made a bloody fortune. But I had a question to ask you. In your resume, you said you sang with Steve Tyrell.
Yeah, I helped open for Steve. This was for a show called Martini Nights. There's an online radio station, internet radio station called Martini in the Morning, and you can find them at martiniinthemorning.com. They've been wonderful supporters of my music. They air some of my things from my CDs. But Steve Tyrell was the headliner on a show that they were doing. It was a pilot where they would, host people from, our type of music from standards, and it was taped. I helped open. There was a gal out of Nashville whose name now escapes me. Who was a real firecracker. She was just great. A gal. Several people, but yeah, I helped to open for Steve, and I saw Steve later on, and he said, "Oh no, man, you," with that raspy voice of his, he said, "Oh man, you're a real singer." Yeah, high praise coming from Steve Tyrell. He's had tremendous success, and that was great fun. That was great fun.
I didn't know whether my cousin was his drummer on some of the shows. A guy named Alan Schwartzberg.
I might have met him.
He used to have well, I don't know if he did then, but he said what we call the Jufro. In his days, he has a beard and this wiry hair standing out. He still has a hair, but it's much shorter now. And of course, the beard is gray.
It happens.
But just a little of my experience, I used to produce TV commercials last century, in the 20th century. And we use a lot of voiceovers, and the trick is, and you want someone with experience because you have to tell them what to do. I can't do it, but you have to tell them. On the first syllable, make you angry. On the in the second syllable, you're in love. On the third syllable, and you have to do it within 30 seconds. I went to a lunch one time, and I don't know if you remember Herschel Bernardi, who did Charlie the Tuner and a lot of commercials. And he said the trick is, there's no trick to it. It's very simple. You have to read 60-second copy in 30 seconds and be warm and sincere. That's it.
That's precisely right. Yeah.
And
Herschel Bernardi.
And the voiceovers the voiceovers can do that. It's amazing.
I booked a voiceover recently for Salonpas. Those of us of a certain age, occasionally we get aches and pains. You put a Salonpas patch on and makes you feel better. And I got booked for it. And I was in a studio using very safe protocols for COVID. And they said, okay, yeah, we need this in however many seconds or whatever. So I read through it one time, and it was 13 seconds. They said, yeah, Bill, we need you to cut it by about a half a second. And I went back in, take a great deal of pride in this, went back in, and the very next time, yep, that's good. That was the right length. I was able to dial it in. And that comes from the several decades of having done this,
Yeah,
and all those other things
well,
you
that's
referred
why,
to.
as a producer, I always hired the people who had experience. It's hard to break
Yeah.
in because studio time was expensive, and you don't want to waste
Yeah.
the time with teaching someone how to do things.
I forget where I heard this story from. I can't remember, but it was a guy who was a voiceover guy, came into a studio and they said, okay, here's your thing. He did it. He nails it on the first take. And they said, okay, that's great. And so he gets his stuff and he's leaving. And the producer says, I can't believe I'm paying you this amount of money for 15 minutes of work. And he said, no. You're not paying me for the 15 minutes of work. You're paying me for the 30 years it took me to where I could do it in 15
Right.
minutes.
That's
so
a trick.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that you're talking about is I grew up, my first job, I worked on live TV on Channel 5 in New York, WNEW. I was like, well, originally I was a prop man for Soupy Sales and Sonny Fox and Sandy Becker, but everything was live. What you saw is what you get. It went over live TV, and there was a certain excitement that knowing that you have to be on your toes because there ain't no retakes.
That's right.
And then when I worked in TV years afterwards, where they would do the show and they would tape and say, "Okay, stop tape. It's like film. Okay, cut. Let's do that one again."
Yeah. And very different.
And what you said, what you would like to do, I had a good friend, Ronnie Silver, who did a lot of live Broadway, and there's a certain excitement that that you're going in front of a live audience. And
that's another thing I would love to do. Yeah, do Broadway. I would love to do Broadway.
Well, we got to come up with a musical for you.
Well, I did a benefit a few years ago called Stage, and I worked with Sally Struthers. Wonderful, funny lady. My God, fabulous person and fabulous talent. And we did a little scene from Bells Are Ringing, if you remember the Billie Holiday.
The bells are ringing for me, my gal. Yeah.
No, not that one. It was a different.
Is that the one with Dean Martin or something?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and Just in Time came from that show. And I was working with all these other Broadway performers on that benefit, and I told them that basically I had to put live theater on the back burner because we started having kids, the lovely Mrs. Jones and I, and the amount of time that it took to do a live stage production and the financial return, honestly, was such that I just decided to write it off. Now I'm at the age, and my kids are at the age, where I'm really interested. And some of these people in the stage benefit said, well, Bill, and I said, I don't dance well. I really don't. That's one thing I do not do. I don't dance, don't ask me. And they said, well, no, you're a leading man type, you should be playing like Sky Masterson in Guys and Dolls, or this other character or whatever. And I suppose even Billy Flynn in Chicago doesn't necessarily have to do all that much dance and what have you. Those are characters that I potentially could do. And one character I always wanted to do was Harold Hill. But I'm getting to the point now where I may be getting too old. It might be a little bit creepy for me and Marion the librarian to sort of latch up. You know what I'm saying here?
No, but he was older already, Robert Preston. He was very versatile actor.
And it depends on how you cast it. I mean, if you cast Marion the librarian, say in her 40s, maybe.
Well, she's still beautiful. I mean, Shirley Jones. In the movie.
Oh God, yeah.
But he reminded me of you talking about doing you can't dance, you don't dance well, but of course you could sing. Jerry Orbach.
Oh.
And everybody of course connects into Law and Order, but I've seen, I don't know if it was the original Fantastics.
And he was in the original version of Fantastics in New York, Sullivan Street Playhouse.
Yeah,
I thought several decades later at the Sullivan Street Playhouse. It was the longest running musical in New York, off Broadway, but longest musical in New York.
And then
I played the same role.
Try to remember. No, yeah. Try to remember
to
the kind of September.
remember September. Yeah, exactly. I played that at a theater that is no longer in Nashville,
Yeah.
not too long before I came out here to Los Angeles. And that was a marvelous experience for me. El Gallo is the character.
Okay.
And yeah, Jerry Orbach, marvelous performer. And most people don't know that he was a song and dance band, a
Right.
really good song and dance band.
I think he did the the restaging of Chicago. I don't know if he was in the original.
I think he did the restaging of 42nd Street, unless I'm
42nd
mistaken.
Street.
Yeah,
And I'm not sure.
My daughter is a would-be Broadway performer, and very well may be on the Broadway stage by the time she gets out of college. We're looking at colleges for her now, and she would be able to tell you. You know,
Actually, I wouldn't mind doing an interview with her to see, you know, how a young and upcoming star, you know, survives.
Right.
A question: Have you ever appeared in Las Vegas in your own show?
I have not. I have not. I'd be open to it. The only time I was in Las Vegas, I was on a live thing that was recorded for radio, but it's a live stage show hosted by a guy named Dennis Bono, who Dennis was, you know, a fairly successful singer of songs like I sing, and still sings. And he hosts shows sort of in the tradition of like the old Mike Douglas show, where he brings on different singers and actors and comedians and showcases a lot of the times he showcases people who are performing in Las Vegas. Well, I had just released a new CD, marvelous segue. I had just released a new CD called I've Heard That Song, Big Band Songbook. And the fellow that I'd hired to help me promote it got me booked on the show. And so I was able to come on the show. And that was at the South Point Casino and Hotel, as I recall. That was fun. That was very, very fun. Really great, I want to say 5 or 6 piece band at the time, led by a guy who's since passed away, who was Bobby Darin's former musical director. And so I totally enjoyed it. I'd be very open to doing that. So if any producers of live shows in Las Vegas want to bring me up, just go to my website, billajones.com, and you can find me. So
well, I can see you as like a cabaret singer. I don't know about, you know, the live, you know, the huge audiences like, you know, Celine Dion or something, but a cabaret, you know, a high class cabaret, like a Sinatra type of thing, where you know you have a
supper
drink.
club. Yeah, supper clubs. You know, you know, like the thing I did, I mentioned it earlier, Vitello's. That was, you know, and I actually was named by a writer for BroadwayWorld.com as one of his top live performance cabaret artists, male cabaret artists a few years ago, a guy named Don Grigware, a fine reviewer. And I was on the list with, the guy who was in the original Pippin, Ben Vereen.
Ben Vereen.
So the fact that I was on a list with Ben Vereen, I'm going, whoa! Then he'd had a little bit to drink maybe that night when he saw me. But yeah, I would enjoy doing the cabaret thing. I went in, I saw a guy named Shinta over in Vegas a couple of years back at a smaller room at the D, I think is the name of that casino. It was downtown. And that size room would be great fun to work with. A guy named, oh gosh, he was working at Cleopatra's Barge at Caesar's Palace. And I can't remember his name. Younger guy who was one of the members of a boy band in Great Britain. And then Matt Dusk, that's the guy. Matt Dusk, very, very successful. And so, and it was a smaller room, but very successful. I'd be very open to it.
Do you need different agents, you know, that book you in various venues, like whether an agent for theater, an agent for TV, an agent for film, and an agent for singing? It seems like it's all different contexts.
Yeah, I've got about 5 different agents, so I can truly say I'm unemployed in 5 different categories at one time.
and of course, you have a business manager that ties the whole thing together.
Not a business manager, but I do have a manager for the theatrical end of things. I'd love to get to the point in my life where I could hire a business manager to handle some of the nuts and bolts that I have to handle myself here in the executive offices and studios of Dog Creek Productions. So, you know, maybe that'll happen. Maybe that'll happen. Oh, I mentioned the CD. There are possibly people who are viewing this who might still have a CD player. I realize it's going the way of the Victrola, but still, I do have a couple of CDs that are available. You can find them on Amazon. Be sure to search under BillAJones.com, or else a female British folk singer comes up as Bill Jones. Believe it, seriously.
Now, by the way, going through your website, I also came across a obituary for Bill A. Jones.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, he was older and he had different background. But I wanted, did you put that there? I mean, parts of it was part of your thing. There's so many Bill Joneses.
Oh gosh, there are plenty of Bill Joneses out there. That's the reason why I use the middle initial. There are about 4 different ones in the Screen Actors Guild, 4 or 5 different ones. There was a guy who, you know, ran for office here in California named Bill Jones. And so, yeah, there are a few of us out there. It's a fairly common name.
But Bill, I hate to say this, our time is up.
Oh,
in fact, we're running over a half hour, but that doesn't make any difference because you know, we're on the internet. And again, this is going to be played on MalcolmPresents.com, and you see me of a picture in a tuxedo they took a number of years ago with a champagne glass as a toast.
Perfect.
This is my you know, visualizing my Frank Sinatra period when you know, he was like you know, the top. I think when I was in my 20s, Sinatra was, you know.
Yeah.
And well, actually, he still is. But
Sinatra is still a star. I'll get in a quick shameless plug before we leave. If people would like to know the things that I'm doing, where I'm performing, I've worked with big bands, I work with my own 6-piece band and what have you. If you'd like to know where I'm performing live, please go to my website, BillAJones.com, and you'll see a link on there to sign up for my newsletter. And I don't send that out that often, but I do occasionally send out, you know, notices of where I'm performing, or if I'm going to do another front porch concert, occasionally I'll send out a special video greeting to people, that kind of thing. BillAJones.com, sign up for the newsletter, or you can find me, I think, on Facebook, Bill A. Jones, aka Rod Remington from Glee. That's the fan page, Bill A. Jones. Let's see, it's Facebook.com/Bill A. Jones fan page. Yeah.
But by the way, were you ever Billy as a kid?
No, never.
No?
Never.
Okay, because I know as a kid everything, because if someone calls me Mally, I know them from elementary school.
Yeah.
But anyway, what I'd like to do, this is a Christmas season, and you mentioned that you had some Christmas song. Could you either play it or sing it a cappella?
Tell you what, I'm actually set up to do this with a track.
Okay, do it, and we'll fade out to that.
All right. Well, this is a song. Here in Southern California, we have a very mild climate, but in spite of that, it does get cool. So here's an appropriate song. The snow is snowing up on Mount Baldy. The wind is blowing, but I will weather the storm. What'll I care how much it may storm? I've got my love to keep me warm. I can't remember a worse December. Just watch those icicles form. What'll I care if icicles form? I've got my love to keep me warm.
Bill, on that note, I say goodbye and have a Merry Christmas. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
Bye.
Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, and all those other things.
Yeah, bye-bye.
I need no overcoat. I'm burning not with COVID, but with love. How my heart's on fire.